I've reported a lot on the left's insane racism, the way they use lies to whip up racial hatred and division, and their frankly jaw-dropping hypocrisy and double standards. But they just can't stop, and their rhetoric and actions are growing increasingly outrageous. Here are two more cases for your consideration. The former Yorkshire bowler, Azeem Rafiq, went public with claims of racism he experienced at the club. Painting himself as the victim, Rafiq claimed that Michael Vaughan, the former England cricket captain, had once said, "There are too many of you lot. We need to do something about it." Now, maybe that was a joke. Maybe it was genuine racism. Or maybe it never happened, because Rafiq could provide no evidence for it. But that didn't matter, because in our witch-hunting society, all that is required is allegation. So Vaughan was immediately cancelled, being cast out of all his broadcasting jobs. Yet, almost immediately, actual evidence of real racism did emerge. Except it was Rafiq who was the guilty party. Posts surfaced of him airing undeniable anti-Semitism, with the evidence there in black and white. So Rafiq immediately painted himself as the victim again, and his tear-stained apology was, of course, considered sufficient. No cancellation or witch hunt for Rafiq. Now, those double standards were amazing, and they should shame anyone with principles or a moral compass. But much of the left have neither, and worse, promptly followed, because Cricketgate faded into insignificance compared with what happened in Waukesha. As we now know, Darrell Brooks deliberately drove his car into a Christmas parade in a Wisconsin town, just 20 miles from where Kyle Rittenhouse had been acquitted only days before. Brooks swerved his vehicle into crowds of children and dancing grannies, deliberately mowing down as many victims as possible. 6 people were left dead, including an 8-year-old boy, and dozens more were left in critical condition in hospital, many of them children. It was an appalling crime. But so was the response by the media. I'd ask you to imagine how the largely leftist media would have reported the event if a far-right white nationalist had committed this crime. But I don't need to, because in 2017 in Charlottesville, James Fields drove his car into a group of BLM protesters and killed 32-year-old Heather Heyer. And the media screamed their condemnation of Fields and his warped ideology from the rooftops. As well they should, for his crime and worldview were repellent. Yet their reporting on this case could not have differed more sharply, because this time they lied, dissembled, and hid the fact that Brooks is a far-left black nationalist, a man outspoken about his hatred of white people and anti-Semitism, a man who bragged about wanting to beat up and run over white people, who repeatedly displayed his support for BLM, and who had a long and sickening criminal history, including strangulation, the assault and pimping out of a 15-year-old girl, and running his partner over with a car. Yet the likes of the BBC and MSNBC, which would have screamed about the dangers of the far right if the roles had been reversed, refused to even mention any of this information. Many outlets reported that what had taken place had been a crash or an accident. One Democrat politician even gloated that it was karma. CNN flat out lied that Brooks was fleeing a crime scene and that it was not an act of terror or retaliation. The Independent which had lied outrageously by describing the victims of Kyle Rittenhouse as 3 black men, also dissembled. But then the same media outlets had drummed it into their viewers that the Rittenhouse case was all about race, and that Kyle was a white supremacist. This narrative would come with consequences, and those consequences would be felt in Waukesha, because not one leftist outlet reported the facts of the Waukesha incident. Their cover-up was complete, shocking, and disgusting in its brazen honesty. An awful dereliction of duty for those tasked with truthful reporting. Acting in concert, they lied about Kyle Rittenhouse and buried the truth about Waukesha. And then they buried the story. But why? Why was their inconsistency and mendacity so naked on this occasion? Well, part of it is that they're more concerned with pushing a narrative than with any kind of objective reporting. When a story fits the message they want to advance, then they embellish it and push it for all they're worth. But when the evidence undermines their ideology, they bury it, they gloss over it, excuse, deny, or just fail to report it. They curate the news to fit their worldview. Like Soviet commissars, the enforcement of their ideology is all that matters. An objective reality can just go hang. We all know this, but on this occasion, I think there's more. Because I think, buried deep inside a small part of what passes for their soul, they know that they are responsible. That they have gestated and nurtured this monster. They have spent years dividing society, spouting endless hate and continual lies about white privilege and white supremacy. The people who accuse their rivals of sowing division and fomenting hate are the ones who've been feeding a distorted worldview, powered by resentment, conspiracy theories, and guttural loathing. They've pushed it into society. They've saturated the internet and the airwaves with this sordid worldview, throwing their full support behind a string of violent criminals while continually excusing rioting, looting, and arson. And in doing so, they've created a nightmare in the minds of lunatics like Darrell Brooks. They are the fire and brimstone hate preachers of old. And the carnage left in the wake of Brooks and that of the appalling mobs of 2020 are the fruits of the seeds they have sown. That list is growing. David Dorn, Secoria Turner, Lorenzo Anderson, Jessica Whittaker, Marie Kelly, and Marvin Francois were among the dozens killed in riots, while the collapse in policing precipitated by their activism has seen a huge spike in the death rate. Now the hatred they promote has claimed more victims. But it will not give them pause, because their refusal to admit to even the basic facts of the case, their denials in burying evidence that they would trumpet if it implicated their rivals, shows they are utterly incapable of confronting this issue, or of changing track. They will continue to spread lies, to hide the truth, to sow division and hatred, and to stoke the fires of more carnage to come. And when it hits, they will turn their eyes away again and refuse to accept that it has anything to do with them. But the truth is plain for the rest of us to see, because it has everything to do with them. They have scapegoated and whipped up hatred against white people for years, while encouraging the violent outburst of other races. The reality is, Waukesha might just be the beginning. If you'd like to support this channel, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in these topics, I've written 2 books which go into them in extensive detail. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they're available on the links below. Please feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.